Welcome back to my channel for my weekly Human Design Transit Report. Today is Monday, April 4th, and we have a new transit starting tomorrow. And before we get into that, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the wonderful birthday wishes that I received last week via email and on YouTube. I just really appreciate that. Thank you. I received that. I'm taking that in and I appreciate it. Yay. Birthdays are interesting, right? Because in some ways they're awesome. They're like your special day. I looked up my solar return for human design. I may share some of that with you soon. And on the other hand, I don't know about for you, but for me, after I was a kid, sometimes it was challenging. It was like, how do I celebrate this day? And I feel like I've gotten to a place at this point in my life where yeah, I'm pretty good. I know how to do it in a way that feels good to me. And actually the celebration will continue into next week. So thank you so much for acknowledging it and letting me know that the work that I provide to you really is of service and really does help you. That makes a big difference to me because, I put a lot of time and energy into making these videos for you. And it's nice when you leave a comment or when you subscribe to the channel or you like it and you let me know how it's touched you. And you certainly did that with my birthday wishes. Thank you. A little announcement too. I want to let you know that very soon I'm going to be opening up registration for my Activate Your Superpowers Introducing Human Design program, which I open up registration for once a year in April and May, and I will be opening it up soon. So you could go and check it out on the courses tab on my website right now, sovereigntybydesign.com. Just go to the menu and look up courses. I'm going to update that page. I have some new special things I'm going to be adding to it as well. So I'm excited to be providing this to you. And it's a wonderful program if you just want to get the fundamentals of human design. And also if you are a therapist or a counselor or a coach or anybody really who works with clients where you would like to be able to use human design to support your clients. It's not a professional training program. I mean, I spent 3 years in my training program, so it's not that. And it's definitely enough to give you some of the fundamentals that you need to be able to support your clients. So it's both for your personal edification and it can also be for your professional edification as well, so that you can, get to know yourself better and get to know your clients better. All right, let's get into it. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, April 5th, the sun is going to move into the gate 51 and the earth is going to move into the gate 57. These are two gates that I know very well because they are defined in my chart. And so I'm excited to get to talk to you about them today. Let's talk about the sun gate first. So the gate 51. So the gate 51 is on the will center. The will center is the center for willpower, as it sounds like, right? It's one of the engines in the chart, and willpower is one of the fuels that we have in order to engage with life. The mantra of the will center is to work to rest. So even though it is a power center, an engine in the chart, it's not inexhaustible the way that the sacral is. So it is something where you can use your power for a bit, but then you do need to rest. And the way Karen Curry Parker, who is my mentor and the creator of Quantum Human Design, likes to talk about it, she talks about it like it's a bank. And so when you're using that energy, especially using your willpower, you're going to be taking withdrawals out of the bank, right? And then at a certain point, you're noticing that that energy is going down. You have to start putting deposits back into your will center. So you could be thinking about that for yourself, is what are some of the ways that you can deposit energy back into your will center? Certainly rest, rejuvenation, time outside, being in the sun, drinking good water, eating good food, all of those things are definitely contributing to it. You just might think about when you're using or expending your willpower, how can you rejuvenate your willpower? For me, what comes up when I think about that is really kind of receiving the guidance that is coming from the flow of life, so that I'm not using my personal will, I'm actually tapping into divine will that is always sending me information about right timing and what are the right projects for me to be engaging in, what sequencing can be happening, what resources I might need, what opportunities are good for me, right? Divine will which actually in the esoteric tradition comes from the constellation of the Great Bear or the Big Dipper, that there are different forms of divine will that are coming to us from that constellation. There's a whole body of work that I studied on divine will at one point that was created by Sanaya Roman and her guide, Orin, if you'd like to find out about that. But just to say here, there are ways that we can really kind of surrender our personal will to the divine will, however you want to think about that, and that we're guided as to if we need more rest or rejuvenation, what kind we might need, and also when it would be time for us to be, using that energy again. So the 51 is on the will center, and it's part of the centering circuit. We do not talk about the centering circuit very much because it's a small little circuit. If you can see here, there's only 2 channels. It's kind of like the defense circuit, which is in the tribal circuit, right? It only has 2 channels, and it is individual circuitry. So it is here to be different. It's here to bring change. It doesn't fit in. It doesn't really care about fitting in. It's really on the leading edge of consciousness. Individual circuitry is where the evolutionary impulse for humanity resides, is in the individual circuitry. And so this is individual circuitry. So the 51 is known in traditional human design as the gate of shock. And in quantum human design is known as the gate of initiation. It is half of the channel of the priest or the priestess or the shaman. And that is a very potent channel. So the mate of the 51 is the 25, which is on the G center. And the 25 is known as love of spirit, or just simply spirit. And so it is our energy for coming from our heart, which is the G center is the center for love and lovability and identity and direction. And it's the mate of the will center. And according to the story of human design, the heart chakra split into 2 in the late 18th century and became the will center and the G center. And so they're mated. They're 2 kind of components of what we think of as the heart center, the energetic heart center. And so this channel is the only channel that connects the will center and the G center. And so it's a way that we bring the power of the will center into the love and lovability and the love of spirit that is in the G center. So the 51 is a little bit of a tricky energy. I was so grateful when I learned about it in human design because I did not understand it earlier in my life, and I knew I had this defined in my chart, and I didn't know what was going on. So when you have this energy defined in your chart, or when it's transiting like it's going to be during this upcoming week, the 51 is a very potent energy. And so it's been named shock in traditional human design, and it's understood in its kind of lowest frequency, if you will. The disempowered state is that you receive shocking experiences. And I know that I did. I received shocking experiences when I was younger. Or what I would call the shadow state is when you shock other people, okay? You kind of use the potency of that energy to manipulate or to gain control over other people, or even just for fun, because you have this ability to kind of shock other people, say shocking things. I also have the gate of provocation. So you put shock and provocation together, you could see how some things I might say might be a little disruptive for people. But in quantum human design, it's been renamed initiation, which really makes sense when you think of it as half of the gate of the priest or the priestess or the shaman. Because what does a kind of spiritual teacher or spiritual leader like that do but help to initiate people into new levels of consciousness? And that experience, depending on how it's provided to the devotee, right, can be shocking, right? I think of it as disruptive more than shocking. I mean, when I say things to my clients that I know are going to interrupt their patterns, for example, or say things to them that are different than I know that than certainly the way they've been thinking, it might be something they've never thought of before, that can be disruptive to them. It can be unsettling. It can be a bit like, whoa, because when something you've taken for granted comes under scrutiny or is simply questioned, or certainly if it's undermined, or really if it's like blown apart, which sometimes happens when we do pattern interrupt, right? Is we just blow up old thought forms, blow up old beliefs because they're not serving us anymore. I mean, they come from some kind of deep conditioning from our ancestry or from our culture or from other lives or whatever it is that is just really not serving us. And so we kind of want to blow them up, right? But I like to do it in a way that I feel that clients can really receive it, not something that's going to feel like a super shocking experience to them. It's certainly not something that's traumatizing. But initiating ourselves and each other into higher consciousness is by its very nature going to be disruptive. It's why I call myself a cosmic disruptor. Because I do see that as part of my job, because I do carry these energies. So this week, you want to be paying attention to the kind of things that might want to come out of your mouth, or that do come out of your mouth, or that you might be receiving from other people. Because one of the things about the centering circuit is that it is what we call aura busting. That's the kind of traditional human design name for it. It's like the defense circuit is aura busting also. And what that means is that this energy is penetrating. Right? So you can imagine if you've got something that's disruptive, even shocking, and it's also penetrating, it could be a lot, right? It could be a lot like if you turn it on yourself. It can be a lot if it's turned on other people. It's a lot if you receive it from somebody. So we want to be able to grab a hold of these energies. If you've been following me for a while, you've heard me say this a bunch of times, but it can bear repeating over and over again, is you want to get on top of that energy and you want to be in command of it, rather than you being at the mercy of it, so that something pops out of your mouth and somebody else finds it shocking and it's penetrating. And the next thing you know, somebody's feeling really hurt. And because you don't want to do that, right? Even if you want to be able to point out something that you think maybe they're thinking or doing that is harming them. And you might want to point that out. And you might get some extra energy to be able to do that this week, because that 51, the sun is lighting it up. So it's like vibrant in the sky, right? Vibrant in our energy fields. But you want to be able to do it with love and care and gentleness as much as possible. And in order to do that, you have to get on top of that energy and not have it be operating inside of you unconsciously, which is what can happen when these transits go. So remember, it has an aura busting quality. It's in its individual circuitry. It has the power of will, right? So if your willpower gets involved in it too, right? And the will center is also the center for value, for worthiness, and for, self-value, self-worthiness, and how we value other people, the center for money. And so we want to make sure that however we're expressing ourselves is helping our own selves and other people to get more in touch with our self-worth, not less in touch, right? We want to help build up and reveal people's value and reveal their worthiness, not say something to them that's going to make them feel unworthy or unvaluable, right? That's not what we want to do with this energy. And you have to be mindful and aware in utilizing it, because it can go that way, especially because unfortunately in our culture, these kind of power over strategies are deeply ingrained in us. The ways that we feel like we can become empowered, unfortunately, too often kind of rest on how we're relating to other people. And so you want to make sure that you're being mindful so that you can use it in a really, really skillful way. We'll want to ground this energy in the gate 57, which is where the earth will be this week. So the gate 57 is on the Spleen Center, and it's in the knowing circuit. And you've heard me talk a lot about the knowing circuit. So the knowing circuit is the biggest of the individual circuits. So both of the gates that we have highlighted this week are in the knowing circuit. And also just say a little sidebar here, that 4323, which is where the nodes are, is also individual circuitry. And it's the only definition that we have with the ajna and the throat happening. So that 4323 is also individual circuitry. So basically all the energy that we've really got highlighted this week is individual circuitry. So you want to be paying attention to that quality and be able to receive the kind of breakthrough ideas out of the box thinking that is going to come to us. So the 57 is in that knowing circuit. It's on the Spleen Center. And in traditional human design, it's known as intuition, but in quantum human design, it's known as instinct. So let's unpack that a little bit. So the Spleen Center is the center for instinct and intuition and the immune system and timing. And all of the gates at the Spleen Center are known as fear gates. The reason for that is that it is instinct. And so instinct's job is to keep us alive, basically, right? It's to keep us alive so that we can procreate and then keep our progeny alive, ideally long enough for them to procreate. It's like really fundamental what instinct is about. And so for a lot of us, we don't live in a world where we have to worry so much about staying alive. There are places in the world where you absolutely do. I want to acknowledge that. And there's also a lot of us where that's not the most a top of mind thing that's happening for us. And yet that instinct can be running us. And that's kind of the point about unpacking those splenic fears. I do have a video that unpacks those splenic fears, and you can go and see that right here. So if you want to know more about that, go and check out this video. I'm not going to go into all of them today, but I am going to talk about the 57. So the 57 was always kind of talked about as the most intuitive gate in the human design chart. I'm not sure if I really agree with that. I think there's lots of intuitive gates in the knowing circuit in the chart. And so you can take that for what you will. I do think that it can be highly intuitive, provided that we don't allow the fear of the future to get in our way, because that's the fear that is associated with the 57. Now, the fear of the future, I think, has been up for a lot of us for the last couple of years. And it's up for a lot of us right now, because as we're looking at different structures that have broken apart and falling down, and we're really clear that the ways that we've been doing things are not sustainable, and we really have to change how we're doing a lot of things here on planet Earth, we can have a lot of fear about the future. And if you watched my video on Throughtopia, which you should go check out, if you haven't seen it, you can go check it out here. One of the things about Throughtopia is how do we create stories about how we get from here right now with all the challenges that we have with racial inequity and economic inequity and with climate change and, so many different things, sex trafficking and so on. How do we get from this state that we're in now to the world that we would really want our grandchildren to live in, whether you actually have kids or not, but you would want the next generation and the next generation to be able to live in. So that's what Throughtopia is about. And it directly confronts that fear of the future. It confronts it and says, we can find a way through these challenges. And I think the 57 can be a big ally for that as we choose not to give our energy to the fear of the future, which is what happens with so many dystopias that we see on television and movies and in novels and, on the news, all over the place, right? Lots of dystopia, lots of fear of the future. We have the ability to actually shift that into more intuition, through which we're going to be receiving guidance from, divine will, as I was saying earlier, or from our own inner being, our own guides from the great flow of life, the creative intelligence of the universe, however you like to think of spirit and the way that you interface with it, that we're going to be receiving guidance about how we're going to get from here to there so that we can create visions of the future and pathways to that future that really work for us, that inspire us, that with our aspirations have some kind of footing, right? And the earth is lighting that up right now. And so the earth is going to be inviting us to be grounding ourselves in these new narratives that are intuitive, and that, there may be things that feel, wow, I don't even know how that grounds in reality, right? But I'm getting an intuitive hit about it, and I want to put energy towards it, and I want to create a story about it. I want to create narratives about it. I want to talk to other people about it. I want to start using my imaginative, intuitive capacity to build a vision of the future that I'm not afraid of, but that I'm actually inspired by. And I want to do that with other people. So the invitation this week is really to be grounding yourself in that sense of possibility that intuition provides us with. And intuition can also guide us away from things that are actually dangerous for us. It won't do it through fear, though. It won't do it through that fear of the future. It'll do it through a, no. Yeah, well, that's my sacral. I can't help it. I'm a generator, but it'll guide us through like the body as a tuning fork being like, not going that direction, or just an inner knowing of like, no, that's not it. We're not going that way. Right. And so it's not from this big fear, lots of anxiety. That is more the fear gates. Okay. But it's more of just, no, we're going to go this direction, not that direction. So intuition can definitely act that way, but I like to think of it as our way forward. And so we want to ground ourselves into that so that then we can open up and shine our sun into our initiation. As we initiate ourselves, like me initiating myself, you initiating yourself, but then we help initiate each other, and whether it's our work in our world or through our relationships, our friendships, or through the way that we interact with different people as our workmates or in our neighborhoods or wherever it is, where we are able to tap into that energy of initiation to move into much more expansive possibilities from a more elevated and a more tapped in, as Abraham would say, tapped in, turned on way of being in the world, right? We want to have that source energy, that creative intelligence of the universe bringing through possibilities for us and initiating us into higher consciousness. So I want to just emphasize, you have got all of the energetic support that you need this week in order to do that. You've got it in the earth and you've got it in the sun. And it's a little bit tricky sometimes, right? Because if we fall into fear of the future, or if we fall into shocking each other, it's not going to go very well. Okay. That's actually a little bit more of our so-called norm. I would just call it norm just because it's typical. But, we're the change makers. We're on the edge of consciousness. We are leading into a new world. And so this is our opportunity to actually grab a hold of those energies and do something really new with that. So I invite you to join with me as one of my fellow change makers to, be writing new stories for yourself, telling new stories, singing new songs, getting together with others, riffing off each other, and coming up with new possibilities. And I personally would love to hear about them as you do that. All right, that's my transit report for this week. Please do go check out Activate Your Superpowers. I will put the link here so you can go and see it. And registration will open for that very soon. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.